Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. For decades now, you've been hearing about the threat that global climate change poses to this country and to the world. Al Gore warned you about all of it in a best-selling book and an award-winning documentary. Bill Nye the Science Guy has done a bunch of internet videos on the subject. Chelsea Clinton often tweets about it passionately. This stuff is serious, okay? How serious? Well, here's the scientific consensus on what will happen if we don't immediately pass some sort of democratic global warming bill. Watch.
This city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Sorry, that was from 1984. It's a clip from Ghostbusters. But things have gotten much more dire since then. Human sacrifice, the dead rising from the grave, cats and dogs living together, those were the old predictions. We'd be lucky to get off that easy now. A new generation of Democratic office holders is thinking bigger than that and far more apocalyptically. Move over, Al Gore. These kids are serious. Watch.
We're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is, your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And like, this is the war, this is our World War II.
Okay, so to recap the terms of this conversation, this is a matter of total war. The world will end if we lose that war. Any consideration of cost is immoral. That's what they're saying. This is not the language of compromise and moderation. It is the language of fundamentalist theology. Just a few years ago, they were telling us we could fight global warming with carbon offsets and slightly higher gas taxes. Now they're demanding that we give up airplanes and walk to work. But you got to give it this. The Green New Deal does make a kind of internal sense. Hysterical predictions require hysterical reactions. Half measures don't cut it when you're fighting a world war for the future of this planet. Maybe that's why Democrats seem all in on this. Every single Democratic senator running for the Democratic nomination right now has endorsed the Green New Deal. Cory Booker, a vegan lawyer who represents Wall Street, describes the fight against carbon as at least as morally significant as the fight against Adolf Hitler. Watch this.
There's a lot of people now that are blowing back on the Green New Deal. They're like, oh, it's impractical. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's all of this. If we used to govern our dreams that way, we would have never gone to the moon. And when the planet has been in peril in the past, who came forward to save Earth from the scourge of Nazi and totalitarian regimes? We came forward.
Who came forward when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? We did. Okay, we give up. Let's take this seriously for a minute because it is at the very center of our national conversation. Let's concede that global warming imperils the Earth and that we need a mass mobilization of Americans to fight it. Solar-powered landing craft on the beaches of this generation's Normandy. No cost is too high, no sacrifice too extreme. Cory Booker is our patent. Let's stipulate that's all true and not flagrantly insane. Who exactly is our enemy in this war? Well, carbon, of course. Carbon is poison. Al Gore told us that 25 years ago. And who is the biggest carbon dealer on planet Earth, the El Chapo of CO2? You probably assume it's America because nobody has bothered to update you on this question. But in fact, it's not America. It's not even close to America. It's China. China is now the undisputed kingpin in the carbon trade. China throws more than twice the amount of deadly carbon into the atmosphere than this country does. China is the problem. And that's true even if you're just a regular environmentalist who still believes in the Earth and are skeptical of received climate theology, because China is also the biggest physical polluter in the world. China dumps almost as much non-degradable plastic into the oceans as the rest of the world's combined. They have not banned drinking straws in Shanghai. So it's pretty clear. If you're worried about killing polar bears and poisoning fish with mercury, you should be very worried about China because they're the ones who are doing it. But nobody in our ruling class seems to know this or care. You don't see Democratic activists or professional environmentalists camped outside the Chinese embassy in protest. Nobody's demanding sanctions on China till they stop polluting. That screechy moron Ocasio-Cortez isn't telling China to give up coal and oil and natural gas and nuclear power within a decade. No way. The left isn't doing any of that because the left loves the Chinese government. It's their model for governing. Just a few years ago, the California governor, Jerry Brown, flew, yes, flew, all the way to the Chinese mainland to praise its fascist government for its environmental leadership. For real. You see what's going on. The Green New Deal is not about the environment, just like gun control is not about school shootings, and speech codes have nothing to do with sensitivity. Nothing is what they say it is. What it's really about is punishment and control. The Green New Deal is a religious document. It punishes America for the sins of its prosperity. The only atonement it offers is turning over full control of the entire U.S. economy to the Democratic Party. That's the indulgence they require. They're using moral blackmail to get it. Of course they are. Theocrats always do. Nate Lerner